Mr. Swamy, your reaction, if you've been able to hear Mr. Pranab Mukherjee's statement today after the joint meeting between Mr. Mukherjee, Chidambaram and the Prime Minister.
Yes, I heard him. He said this office memorandum doesn't represent his views, but his views are irrelevant. The court is concerned with facts, and facts have not been contradicted. And all those detailed facts given, plus references to almost 42 documents, and particularly paragraph 9 and 10 and 11, they are very damaging to Mr. Chidambaram, and they are based on facts. So it is, and the courts are going to decide. What has been worked out between Pranab Mukherjee and Chidambaram is pathetic. It has got no concern. The country will probably laugh at it because we are not concerned whether there is amiability between two ministers or not. We are interested to know whether Mr. Chidambaram is culpable or not. That is only the courts can decide.
All right, Mr. Swamy, but isn't it also true that at the end of the day, what we're really looking at is that this note which has come out in public domain contains inferences which have been given, which have been drawn by a bureaucrat. So isn't Pranab Mukherjee factually, politically, technically speaking correct when he says that these are mere inferences which have been given by a bureaucrat, not necessarily from a politician?
Well, you have not been a minister, so you don't know what the difference is between a note and an office memorandum. This is a note which is as a formality signed by a deputy director. Incidentally, when I became a minister, the appointment letter was signed by a deputy director. Now, this has a file number, so it's become part of the file. And the 4-page note which Mr. Pranab Mukherjee sent to the PM, that describes how the whole thing got initiated, how many ministries got involved, and ultimately, the deputy director may have been the draftsman, but it has gone through several drafts, an improvement of drafts, and ultimately went to the minister who saw it and sent it back and said, have it issued.
So are you then saying, sir, are you then saying that this note which was sent, this draft which was finally sent to the Prime Minister, you're saying that it's actually binding on part of the political establishment to accept this note and go by these inferences?
Yes, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee has been cowardly to dissociate himself with it. He's totally bound by it. He can't let down a bureaucrat of his ministry in this way just because he wants to make up with Mr. Chidambaram. Mr. Chidambaram case is in the court. This drama will have no effect at all.
But then, Mr. Swamy, there are many observers who are also saying that on one hand, while you are gunning for Mr. Chidambaram and Pranab Mukherjee, why are you also not saying that the Prime Minister must also accept some responsibility? At the end of the day, he is the head of the cabinet, sir.
Because I am a private citizen, I am not a head of the CBI or head of the CBC, and I don't have a staff. I have to do all my work myself, and therefore I go one by one. So I began with Raja and came all the way to Chidambaram, and then I know who's next. And in the process, in the end, when I see whether Mr. Prime Minister should be brought in, I'll see at that time whether he has taken money or he's benefited somebody by his action. At the moment, I see no evidence to show that he is culpable on any of those things.
Okay, but what about Mr. Chidambaram himself? Are you saying that there is evidence which you may have access to, which you could present later on, which could also show criminality or corruption on part of Mr. Chidambaram? Because the government has been absolutely clear. There is no case of any criminality against Mr. Chidambaram, sir.
Well, they will say that. They will say all kinds of things. It's a policy matter. They don't know there are Supreme Court judgments, not only of this country, but the United States and England, which say that policy can't be decided arbitrarily. You have to lay down all the alternative policies and then pick that policy which you think is the best. There you can make an error of judgment. Secondly, on the criminality, go to section 13, bracket 1, bracket D, part 2 and 3 of the Prevention of Corruption Act. I can show that Mr. Chidambaram is culpable under that. That I will do in the trial court. At the moment, I want in the Supreme Court an inquiry to be ordered because the CBI failed to look at the documents I have produced in court.
But at the end of the day, sir, isn't the government line of defense also a valid one? I mean,
no.
Isn't the government, why are you disagreeing with this fact that the government says that the policy on its own was correct because it was a policy which was started off, the telecom policy, by the NDA government? If there was a problem with the implementation, if Mr. Raja was responsible for that, then he's behind bars. Then what is your whole case about, sir?
My whole case is that Raja was not alone in making this decision on what the price level should be. It had nothing to do with policy. It was the NDA government only said that the finance minister and the telecom minister will jointly decide what the price should be. They decided the price in 2008 as 2001. On what basis? Did any of the ministry officials support that? No. Then they decided themselves. The 4 meetings that took place, the minutes of that to say they did it themselves. And then they went and reported to the Prime Minister that we have come to an agreement. So they are culpable for that. And then Mr. Chidambaram advises Mr. Raja that he can permit Swan and Unitech to sell at 8 times the price they paid to the government of India to Etisalat and Telenor, which were blacklisted companies. Now, if you are going to give at low price so that the consumers benefit, why are you permitting them to sell it at 8 times the price?
Right.
You could have asked Etisalat and Telenor to bid in the very first place and pay 8 times that amount.
Okay.
So there's enough evidence to book Mr. Chidambaram. There's no amount of whitewashing is going to help.